Good afternoon, everyone. We are back. That's right. So, for those of you who are just joining us for the first time, my name is Terry White, worldwide design and photography evangelist for Adobe, and I'm joined with the highly esteemed and amazing photographer, Katrin Eismann. Katrin, how are you today?
I am so good. Glad to be here.
All
Appreciate
right.
the invitation.
No problem. And we're on day two. So if you missed day one, you should definitely go back and watch the replay. Katrin did some amazing things all on mobile yesterday, all on phone. So you'll get a chance to go back and see how you can really turn your phone into a camera that gets professional results, and that you can even do all the editing and everything on your phone as well. So, for those of you who are already in the chat, I see Wade, I see Sam, I see, let's see, Susan, Danielle, Victoria. Welcome, everyone. Michelle, if I didn't say that already, Richard, Vel's been a while. And Sean, if I didn't say, I think I said Sean already. So, a bunch of people already in the chat giving me multiple comments. So, I'm counting them twice. Jan is there as well. And great to see you all here, and we have hundreds of people that are just kind of lurking around looking as well. All right, so with that said, I will turn my mic up. I saw your comment. Let me crank it up just a little bit here. Test, test, test. All right, I think we got it a little louder, and we will talk a little louder, and we will go from there. All right, so next up, we're going to just take a quick look at the schedule for today. So we have a ton of content that kicked off at 7:30 Pacific time this morning, getting started with Photoshop Camera with Jesus, Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge with Voodoo Val. Now we're in this time slot, 9:30 to 11:30. And then after us will be the Illustrator Daily Creative Challenge with Claudia, and Branding and Identity with Andrew, and the Adobe XD Daily Challenge with Howard, and Draw Along with Kyle Webster, and finishing off the day, Voodoo Val will be back with a design off and Cody Bear. So, a huge packed schedule of content that you guys can just watch along all day and participate in the challenges and see what's going on. All right, so with that said, if you are watching this on YouTube or somewhere else, you that's cool. You can hang out there, but if you really want to participate in the chat and ask Katrin questions or ask us questions, then you should really head over to Adobe or b.net/Adobe Live. That's where this is really being hosted from, and that's where all the questions will be answered. That's the chat we're actually monitoring, so forth and so on. So we would love to have you there. And that's where I would highly recommend that you come in and talk to us. That's where we are. So, is this a regular thing? All this live tutorials and challenges? Yes, Robin, it's a regular thing all day, every day. Now, speaking of that, all day, every day, except for next week. There will be content, I'm sure, next week, but Adobe is actually, we do a mid-year shutdown for a week around the 4th of July. So the our mid-year shutdown happens next Monday. So the programming next week will be a little different, but normally, yes, Robin, we're doing this all day, every day. All right. Yeah, all day, every day, Monday through Friday. Good point. So, Katrin, are you ready? You want to give us a little recap of what you did yesterday and
Oh
what you
boy.
plan to do today?
Okay. So, oh boy, yesterday, I wish I could do that talk and walk backwards. Yesterday, we concentrated on Lightroom on the phone, and I spent quite a bit of time showing people a Lightroom camera and how to access it and all the different ways to use it, from automatic to professional, HDR, um, being able to control the exposure with slow shutter, and also depth map capture. And I got quite a few messages and Instagrams where people were like, "You inspired me. I went and I took a walk. Here's my picture." And I'm like, "That's great." Exactly. Because that's what, photography really can like help us, you know, take a step back, take a walk, look at the world, and notice those little things that when you're busy or you're rushing, you just don't notice. So having a camera gives you permission to like look and explore. And I think, nowadays with everything that's going on, I think sometimes just taking a few minutes to like breathe deep and take a few pictures can really help you. Then I showed some Lightroom processing and a few of the new features. And today we want to jump into Lightroom Desktop and Lightroom iPad, and I'm going to be concentrating on new features again, and also how I travel light. All right, because I love to travel, but I cannot stand schlepping gear or paying overage for baggage fees. Okay, and so that's what we're going to work on today. All right, so I'm going to show you a little slideshow. It's sort of like my photo history, because I know many people don't know me. How is that possible, Terry? How is that possible? Um, but
Well,
uh,
they know you now. They know
yeah,
you after
uh-oh,
this.
oh, okay, buckle up. No, seriously. So I wanted to start with a little overview, and this is very old work, all done on film, and I want to hang on. And somehow I've been juggling these files so much that it got all right. And what I'm trying to show with this is these are all files that were created before. I'm going to quit out of that because obviously people are waking up. I apologize for the interruptions. All created before Photoshop. Now, if a Photoshop artist would look at this, they would go, oh, yeah, you got a layer and then a color layer, and then you set it to overlay. And it's like, no, this is all before film. Or a Photoshop person might look at this and like, oh, increase the contrast and the saturation and then invert, to get that really light skin. Now, this is what we used to do with film in terms of cross processing, where you
Wait. What's
what?
film?
Yeah, it's even that stuff that is on your teeth when you wake up in
Right.
the morning. Well, I'm old, and so I started with film, um, and I in the late 70s, and I still have all that film, and I'm still determined to organize it, but somehow I still haven't gotten around to it. So, but what I'm trying to show here is that I was already seeing the world with motion, with layers, with abstraction before I got to digital. Also enhancing negatives. This is a large 8-inch by 8-inch negative that I painted on and destroyed to sort of, for me, express what people were doing to the landscape, or doing what's called a gel lift. Interested in identity issues where you could like literally lift the ink off of an advertisement, and then I would make large photo prints with it. Now, the reason I was doing this is because I was never very good at expressing myself in 1/125th of a second. I always felt like I needed a little more time. Then when digital started, the cameras in the late 80s, early 90s, I probably shouldn't use such language. They were not very good. They were not very good, and they were very expensive. Um, so like the first Apple QuickTake camera could capture 640 by 480 and all of 8 images before you had to download. And so it wasn't really satisfying. So what I did is I used the flatbed scanner as my camera, because the resolution was pretty good, but I would always move the subject while I was scanning. Come on, people. When you were in the office by yourself with a photocopy machine that you photocopied yourself, right? I'm not the only one that did that. So this is
You're the
uh,
only one.
I am the only one. Yeah, right. I'm the only one that would share it. This is me, a flatbed scan of me. And so, obviously, much younger. And back then, the scanners had to do 3 passes for red, green, and blue. So I had to like stay in position 3 times as this incredibly bright light came over my eyes. I literally couldn't see for like 2 minutes after that. But the idea is experiment. So I enjoyed working with Photoshop a lot. And I'm going to tell you the first thing that really challenged me with Photoshop were layers. I started with Photoshop before it was released, so before 1.07. And so then you had one, and then two, and then finally layers came out with three. And it was like, if you needed layers, why would you do it? And I really did not understand them. And that sort of taught me to explore. And to learn layers, I literally just took two files, put them together, and just started painting the mask back and forth. And to do that, I just kept making these composites that, now I look at them are incredibly crude. But when you're first starting out, you literally want to do, and my friend Sean Duggan taught me this term, give yourself some Photoshop sandbox time. Maybe it's half an hour a week or, an hour a week where you literally just go into the application and you play with a feature. Don't even read up on it, just sort of try to figure out what it does and see what you can discover. And I like that idea of playing. It's something that I think that we might not do enough, because we're under pressure to produce and to post and to share. But the playing can be really, really important.
The playing is absolutely important, and it's something that, at least I know personally, I don't take enough time to do. So,
Yeah. Um, and sometimes we get in a rut and keep doing the same thing over and over again.
mm-hmm.
So I'm just letting you, by showing you my less good work, I'm saying, oh, just go for it. Now, here, I think I overreacted. This is my reaction to my first gray hair. Yeah, that's it. I'm dying. The world's coming to an end. And I think I overdid it. Um, After I ripped out the hair, I made this image, and look at that find edges filter. Oh my gosh, it's terrible.
I used to use that all the time. Now that you remind me, to show people like how they would make a sketch out of a photo.
That's right.
Yeah.
I think this session is like Photoshop confessions. It's like poor Photoshop was probably saying, please don't do that. But this image, because it's a little more conceptual, actually got me an invitation to be an artist in residence at a private girls' school in Los Angeles. And there was a gallery there, and they wanted me to do an exhibit. And I was always very interested in the relationship to nature. So I created these composite images, and I'll show you how I did that. I had quite a collection of these backgrounds, and that's another thing. I don't know why I photographed these, but I'm sure glad I did, that I had my own files to work with. So this is medium format film, and then I was fortunate enough to be lent a medium format scanning back camera, and so I photographed what I had. And what did I have? I had me. So my shadow, hand, and I love these old medical illustrations because it's really interesting how, you know, for me, it's like the more you look within yourself, the more of the universe you see, and vice versa. Like, aren't you amazed when you look and see those star pictures and the nebulas? So I sort of try to combine those. And this is what the exhibition looked like. When I went and visited the school to see the gallery, they were showing me the walls, which are actually behind me where I'm taking this picture right now. And I just sort of blurted out, I'm not going to use the walls. I'm going to use the windows. And sometimes I say these things, then I go home like, what the heck was I thinking? But because using the walls would have been easy. So what I did was I was really attracted to those trees in the courtyard, that they were sort of trapped, and I wanted to create images that interacted with nature. And that's a lot what my work is about, is interacting with nature. So these are 4 foot by 4 foot Kodak Dura clear prints. It was like looking at, if you remember what slides looked like, it was like looking at giant slides. I guess nowadays you'd probably hang up big monitors. It's
Yep,
not the same.
you would. It's not the
It's not the
same,
same.
but I still do prints. I mean, I still
Yeah.
enjoy having my work on the wall.
Yep. Exactly. Well, obviously, I don't have a printer that could print onto Kodak Duraclear. I was
Mm-hmm.
lucky to be able to work with a lab. But and the girls really loved it. They practically moved into this gallery. And so here's just a few more of the images that I made for that. Always, why photograph myself? Because I'm there and I don't need a model release. Okay. It's just incredibly convenient. And there's another image combined with the etching, the medical drawing, the rocks. And so now this is not some significant gesture of, oh my goodness, that's it. This is that camera needed so much light to work that I literally photographed at high noon, and it was still like a 30-second exposure. And
Wow.
I just had to protect my eyes from just burning out.
30
But it was fine.
seconds is an eternity when you're trying to stand still.
Oh yeah. And then I've got quite a few where my breathing shows up as like these really odd lines. And here's another view from that exhibit, and you could see on the floor on the right, those images, they worked similarly as stained glass would in an old cathedral. And the images would crawl along the floor, which I thought was really beautiful, which is once again sort of talking about the ephemeral of light and the transience. Oh my goodness, let's get heavy. The transience of our existence in a Lightroom class. But that's sort of, I think it's important that, in all honesty, that as artists that we take ourselves seriously and that we take care of ourselves. And if you're inspired by something, you should follow that inspiration. You should do it. So many times we hear that little voice of, oh, this is stupid. Oh, this has been done before.
Yeah,
Oh, this is not
the
good.
the this has been done before is the one I always get caught up
Right.
on.
Exactly. And it's like, well, Terry, if you haven't done it before, it
Right.
hasn't been done before. And
Yeah,
so,
and same thing with tutorials. Like if you, it's very hard to come up with a tutorial that someone hasn't done at some point. But then do it your way. Do it with your spin on it, your take on it.
right, your sensibilities. Exactly. Now, because I was in this exhibit, I was invited to have another exhibit. Um, and then that curator also asked for composites. And to tell you the truth, I was sort of sick of compositing because, and I did write a book on it. um, it's a lot of work, and anybody that's out there that does composites understands. I mean, you have to like plan the shoot and do the masks and the selections and the pen tool, and it can be very zen, but it could also be very time consuming. And so I thought it was sort of funny that they would request composites. So I'm like, fine, I'll give you composites. These are all single shot images because once again, the relationship with nature, and we lived on the Hudson River, so I was very in tune with the water and the fish. And what I did is I went and I got a mirror from Home Depot for $12, and then I put the subjects on the mirror, and that cloud is actually in the sky, but I'm looking down. So I did what they wanted, but I sort of did it my way,
Right.
and that is that can work very well for artists. I think sometimes there's a big challenge of do whatever you want. And you're like, oh my gosh. But if there's a parameter, if there's a deadline, if there's a subject, I think that a lot of creative people, I know this with designers too, we really excel at like, okay, here's a limitation. What can I do in that limitation? Have you ever experienced that, Terry?
I have. So by the way, your slideshow is causing quite a reaction here. Hi
Oh,
everyone, so inspired by Katrin as I was yesterday. Love this work so much by Michelle. Let's
thank
see
you.
what else. Bell says, I concur. Follow your inspirations. They tend to lead to paths undiscovered.
Exactly. And so here's this installation shot. This is more traditional prints, but you had a warm wall and a cool wall.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, and after doing the composites, in all honesty, I sort of got burnt out, and I did not like that feeling. I didn't I was sort of like, oh my gosh, turn the computer on. Do I sound spoiled? I just sort of was like sort of done. I was sort of done with compositing in multiple images. And so I sort of lost my passion. And then the Apple iPhone 4 came out. And oh, here, literally, I'll show you. In the upper left-hand corner, that dog, that's the
Yeah.
first picture I took with the iPhone 4. It's a picture off the TV screen of the Westminster Dog Show.
Wow.
You know how it is. You get the phone, you open it up, you're
Right.
watching TV, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't know,
Click.
click. Well, there's the winner
But
of the
here,
dog show.
I'm more impressed that you still have it. Like I'd be hard pressed to find my first iPhone picture.
Yeah, there's like 50,000 of them. That's
Right.
bad, I know. But the thing that the iPhone did, and if you use a different brand or smartphone, whatever, flip phone. Um,
Well, yeah. Okay. I'd be hard pressed to find my first smartphone picture. There, we'll make it generic.
yes, exactly. Um, but what was great about it is, yes, we know the best camera is one that you have with you, but by having it with me all the time, I could practice seeing again. I could practice being curious. I could practice framing. I could practice playing. And it's a habit that you want to get into. I try every day. I go to bed at night thinking, what am I going to photograph tomorrow? Which can be a challenge, but you do it. And so the pictures, I think,
You know
are,
what though? I don't think that's so uncommon to everyone. It's if you're an
oh,
artist, what am I going to draw tomorrow? You're a photographer, what am I going to shoot tomorrow? You're a teacher, what am I going to teach tomorrow?
yep.
It's we all run into those. And I always tell people when I do these live streams or when I'm doing tutorial videos, it's always easy to do the actual video or tutorial. Coming up with the topic and all the content and all that, that's what takes hours, if not days.
Yeah, exactly. Like this is a 2-hour talk. Let's not talk about how much prep went into it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
The end result's the easy part. It's the coming up with all the ideas that's the hard part.
Yes. And so, boy, I guess I have more than this. Wow. There's a lot of contact sheets here. Anyway, um, so I really got into, I'm in New York and I always had to walk from work to the bus station, about 20 blocks, because I'm too cheap to take the subway for 20 blocks. And I love photographing in bad weather, and everybody should. But I don't want to take out my big, expensive cameras in the rain. But iPhone, they don't care if they get wet. I mean, I'm not doing underwater
Yeah,
photography,
right. Yeah.
but if my hands are wet, it doesn't matter. So I started working with these long exposures with the app called Slow Shutter, and would follow. Oh my, yes, I would follow people, but it's New York. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
And I got to the point where I knew if I wanted like red light, I would go to the Bank of America because they had red. And if I wanted blue, I would end up by a Chase bank.
You
Um,
really thought it out. Like I would have never put that together.
oh yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. Definitely. Then there's the other bank that's green that gives your dogs biscuits. I forgot its name. Um,
Yeah.
so if I'm not in New York anymore, but please, if you are in New York and it's raining, like don't get a black umbrella. That's not good for artists. Colorful people, colorful.
Help us out. Use
Help
color
us out
umbrellas.
here. Exactly.
All
This is
right,
even
so
better.
Richard Hawkins says you're so inspirational, and Pam, I would love to see this, but Pam says many years ago I did a series called My Backyard to show you don't have to go on a trip to take photos.
That's
Pam,
right.
post the link to that if that's publicly available. I'd love to take a look at that because I often find myself that same thing. If I don't go somewhere, I end up not shooting because I just think I'm tired of shooting around my house.
Exactly. And if people can visit the talk from yesterday and see the whole series I did in my kitchen. So let me keep going. Now this is pretty cool. This is the same woman 3 times.
Hmm.
And it sort of shows really nicely. I feel like it's more a little like Brock descending the staircase image, but it really shows how differently cameras see than we do. I mean, if I actually saw like this, I probably shouldn't be out in public. You know, that could be dangerous. But cameras change. how we work with time and how we work with foreground background relationships. And so I think that's really inspiring. And so then I explored another app called Average Cam Pro, which takes multiple exposures and puts them together into one file. And I really feel like this is a saxophone player in Times Square. This feels more like New York to me than a just a straight shot of the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm literally probably the only one that ever lived in New York that would actually go to Times Square because I wanted that craziness.
Wow.
It's fun, right? It's all on the phone. And it's nice. That's nice about the phone too. I mean, I carry a camera, I carry heavier gear, but it's sort of nice to have like no obligations in your pocket. Ah, the light's good, the weather's good, go and play. So there's a down by Union Square, crossing the street. And what these images did, once again, they were part of that issue that I have about really working with a single frame. And so then I decide, well, what can I do with it? Remember, I did a lot of self portraits. How can I show time with multiple frames?
Hmm.
So, how I'd like that for a cliche. Well, put a clock into it. So I tried, but here's the same. These are shot with the phone with that multiple exposure app. So once again, I'm working in layers, but with a single file. And so I wanted to create these self portraits that would sort of show, be hideous, but in my opinion, still beautiful.
Hmm.
And I feel this looks like a Dutch painting. And I have at least four eyeballs in that picture. And all this is me in the bathroom playing. And that's it. I'm like, I'm home alone. What can I do? I mean, now, Tara, you know this, I'm in Michigan, and we will not talk about the winter because I think that's one of the reasons that you moved.
That is the main reason I moved. It's
Yeah.
the main reason I'm not in Michigan anymore.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I go out when it's cold, but I'm not doing nudes out in the cold, that's for sure. Nope. And
uh,
so
all right,
here's
so you have a couple
okay.
things here. Levon says, I have a rainbow umbrella just for artists like Katrin.
Yay.
Um, let's see. Jamie said, or is that Jamie? Says, hustle and bustle. Wade says, wow, these are wild. Love it.
Thank
And
you.
Donna's asking a question. How do you find apps that you use? And Colin
Oh,
says, fantastic images. I'm getting ideas.
thank you. That's good. I'm glad you get ideas. How do I find apps? Well, I learned about Slow Shutter from Russell Brown. He used
Okay.
to love that app. And I'm like, good enough for Russell? I'm trying it.
Russell is definitely the app guy or app
Exactly.
or the iPhoneographer guy.
Yes, he totally is. And then Average Cam Pro, it was really made for scientific imaging, because it's like when you take star pictures, lots of times you'll stack different images together to reduce noise, and it's really meant for that. So I'm like, I'm using it for art. So it's all about playing. Now, this is part of my travel kit. I was going to go to China. My husband worked in Shanghai for 2 years, and I was going to go visit him. And I'd done that a few times, knowing anybody that's traveled, knowing you're going to have jet lag. You wake
Definitely.
up at 2:30 in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
starving, and you can't fall asleep again. And so I figured, well, I am going to create self portraits in the hotel bathrooms that we were going to be staying in. I don't know. I just
Okay.
did. So I look like a
So
sausage.
this is what you do at 2:30 in the morning when you're out of town. Okay, got
Hey, it's better than breaking into the mini bar.
it.
Oy, oy. Oh my gosh. Anyway, but here's the thing. I wanted to sort of show the pain, the getting old, you know, the these multiple layers. And this is what the image looks straight out of the camera. Okay, so that's what it looked like I mean, 1, 2, 3, at least 5 eyebrows there. And then after I process, this is what it would look like. So they come out pretty flat, but I could easily process them.
Okay.
And you know, when we used to be able to travel, you go to a hotel. The first thing most people do is they look out the window.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, nope, I was going to the bathroom.
Straight to the
Like
mirror.
straight, the mirror, the light, how big is the bathtub? This is going to be great.
So
So,
one of the mirror questions that came up earlier, I don't think I posed it to you, but it was how do you stay out of the like I guess how do you stay out of the reflection kind of thing? Like how do you take
right.
it but not look like you're taking it?
Oh, yeah, I'm actually taking a picture of myself and using the mirror as the light source.
Okay.
So I'm not shooting the
Ah,
reflection.
I got you. You're not shooting the reflection. Got
Exactly.
it. Okay.
Okay. And then, I really wanted my husband to wake up in the morning. So this is how I would greet him. Everybody's like going, oh God, this is more information than I ever needed. Anyway, we just got to have fun. It's some face makeup and rubber bands. I'm not hurting anybody. Anyway, so I do use big cameras too.
Yes,
In
you do.
Yes, I do. So in 2014, I was honored, and I still am. I was named to be a Sony artisan,
Mm-hmm.
and just so that people know, I had switched from Canon to Sony before they asked me. All right, and I switched for a number of reasons in terms of like the size, the silent shutter, the electronic viewfinder, and so the it was interesting that another shift in technology really got me excited, and it got me into the studio. All right. And I created this series of what I call intervened portraits that aren't like a recording of the person. Are you noticing some similarities with what I did by myself? But I did not tie people up. I don't hurt other people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like this man Faras is incredibly smart. So I really wanted to focus in, just on his
That's an
eye.
interesting use of light.
Thank you. Yep, it's a little triangle cut through cinefoil
Mm-hmm.
and just brought in. Photographing through some glass beads. Once again working with layering in the single shot. I love layers. I just don't always want to actually add them myself. Here, rotating the camera during exposure because that jacket was just like screaming for motion. I was just like, whew. And what's great about digital is, you take the picture and like, oh, that's too much blur. Okay, so you go from a quarter of a second to a 15th, rotate the camera, like, yep, that's it. Take 3 shots, you're done. And I really, for this, if you want to try it, I really tried to pivot on her eyes. So the eyes would be a little more still, more sharp than the jacket.
Yeah.
Same beads. I mean, I,
Yeah.
I have,
Love this one.
thank you. I have lots of, oh, yes, the prop store. You go to Michael's, the craft store,
Or the
they're
dollar
the
store.
dollar store, they always have
Yeah.
something on sale.
Yeah.
So here on the left, I'm photographing, probably holding a leaf up to the lens. Here, I know I'm shooting through a blue weed. There's some blue weed that I found at the side of the road.
Mm-hmm.
This is probably holding up like a water bottle, shooting through leaves. I just sort of like the dimensionality of it, using motion. Same woman, but different motion with her hair.
But go back one.
Yep.
That is not easy with glasses.
What do you mean? That she shake her head like that?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
For you to capture that without it
Right.
looking, yeah, yeah. That
Well, it
wasn't
was.
easy.
Oh, well, thank you. It was also. I had a little off-camera pro photo,
Mm-hmm.
little flash, and would pop the flash,
Ah,
so
okay.
they were crisp, and then she was blurred.
Perfect.
But what was fun about this image is like I had this idea of like I want to show people a little more emotional, a little um, more energy. So I had this idea, and I knew I needed the flash to freeze it. You can see that in the earrings too.
Hmm.
And I started talking with this model, and then it was like she turned out to be a psychology major. I'm like, fine, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. So it's always nice when things like that work out.
And
So
Laura's asking, when did you start with photography? Like, when was your?
I started in photography in the oh, I'm old, in the late 1979, 1980.
Been doing it
Um,
for a while.
Doing it for a while. Took a break. I mean, I stopped it to work in the restaurant business, which could be pretty hard work. So I got out of that, but I've been doing it for a while. Yes. Yes. When I used to tell students that I started with Photoshop, in 1990, one kid had the audacity to look at me and go, "They had computers back then?" I was just like, "And you are not off to a good start." You're like B minus. So I love playing with motion, and I took this long exposure workshop, and where you get the neutral density filter and you do all that stuff. And I'm now back up here in Lake Huron, so I go out in the morning and I'm like, "This is great. I'm going to photograph the water," and I got this golden light, and I'm like, "That's great." Well, you can't really do that every day. Like, I mean, right? But can you imagine an exhibit of golden stuff like this? I mean,
Yeah.
maybe, but it was like, all right, once you've done that 2 or 3 times, I'm like, all right, next. And that's what's great about photography is you have an idea, you do it, you look at the image and you think, what is this image saying? What else can I do? How can I go further? And that's sort of it. You can have a dialogue with your own work. So I literally was like, I have got to do something different. So I ran into the house and I literally got lemons and I just held them in the water with a 2-second exposure. And it's like, what's the worst that's going to happen? I might lose a lemon, right? It might
Yeah.
float away. Doesn't matter. But when I saw this image on the screen, I was like, oh, that's cool. Because now it's more than just a picture of someone holding lemons in the lake. I mean,
Hmm.
if the gesture of the hands, the motion, it's sort of like stormy, what's going on? I have no idea. And you want to sort of listen to that, like, well, I don't know. Let's try it. I mean, the worst thing that can happen of the I don't know, let's try it is you might have a file that you're going to put in the trash. Like,
Yeah. What do you have to lose? You're not going to like it, so delete it and move on.
exactly. And so I started this series called The Futility of Memory, where, so I live right on Lake Huron. And obviously, this lake has been here way before we ever got here. And it's going to be here much longer than we ever were. And so that being on a Great Lake makes you feel rather insignificant. And so I started working on this series of trying to express that futility, not in like, oh, life is so futile, but sort of appreciating that I'm here in this moment and I'm very lucky to be here. And literally, my husband and I say that every single day.
All right. I'm going to give you a bit of advice that I wish someone had given me when I lived in Michigan.
Yeah.
I did not know this when I was there.
Oh,
I love lighthouses,
yes.
and
Yes.
I know of a few, but I had no idea that Michigan, of all places, has the most lighthouses in the world.
That's right.
I had no clue until I was gone.
Yep.
And
Oh,
so
yeah.
you could just tour the state and capture lighthouse images.
That's right. In all different seasons. There's
Right.
beautiful ones in the
Yeah.
winter too. Yep. Yeah. I mean, the Great Lakes are, the freighters and everything, 1,000-foot long freighters. It's amazing. So, um,
I
anyway,
like
so
this one
here,
too.
thank you. So, what I would do is I would get up in the morning before sunrise, and we face due east. And I had about, I would say, 15 minutes where I could actually shoot because I really wanted that golden light. I set up the camera, had a self timer, and how do you like this for futility? Let's fill up the Great Lakes with water. Honestly, sometimes I just need to entertain myself. But so I would shoot this, and then in the afternoon I would drive around to Salvation Armies and thrift stores, and I had a $5 limit because whatever I was going to buy, I was going to end up in the lake. I wouldn't
Hmm.
leave it there, but it was going to get ruined. So, and I figured out after and here's another good thing about photography: you do it again, you do it again, you look at your results, and then of course we look at our metadata, right? And we figure out what settings work. And so for this series, as odd as it sounds, my best exposure was 1.6 seconds. And so I would make sure to set my camera to 1.6 seconds. That worked the best.
1.6 seconds. Okay.
That's right, if you're there. So here, more futility, trying to saw water, right? And then
Well, I have one underwater image that you're reminding me of.
yeah,
I had a model underwater with a set of flowers and a water thing to water them underwater.
nice,
So
nice.
adding water underwater, watering flowers.
That's right. That's good.
Just a
Uh,
crazy, stupid idea, and I never really liked the photo, but
but
I
it's
tried it.
trick exactly. Um, and so I did like a whole bunch of these, and then I realized there was something missing in the picture. Oh yes, ironing. I did not return this iron to the Salvation Army. I wouldn't want anybody to electrocute themselves. Okay,
Ironing the wrinkles out of the lake.
that's right.
Susan says this series is my favorite so far.
Oh, thank you. I was missing. I needed to be in the images, right? Because after a while, it's like, how many objects can I put in the lake? And a series like this is really about, I'll just say it's about the artist. So
Hmm.
I had to end up in the lake. Um, and so there I am. And there's going to be more of me working. And this is all in camera. I mean, yes, I processed it and added clarity, of course,
Of
but these are
course.
all single shots. Oh, come on. I wanted a horse when I was little. All right. I'm not the only one, and I'm certainly not the only little girl that wanted a horse. And so let me show you how that was made.
And while
Um,
you're doing that, Bradley says, thank you for sharing your point of view on everything. So wonderful to hear your take on creative exploration.
thank you.
And Shauna
Okay.
says, love this one, and the textures looks like a painting. Frame it.
Okay. So can you still see my screen with a quick
Yep,
time?
yep.
Okay. All right, people. I always forget the command key. So here is the making of the horse picture. So you see I have a remote. I have a
Hmm.
black dress on. Well, that's not working. Put on the white slip. Go in. That point of view is not working. Take the horse out. No, none of this is working. Change the point of view. Quick, the sun is coming up. There might be some kayakers going through the back. I'm done.
And again, just that time lapse and showing us how your thought process and working through it. That's the thing that people take for granted when they see the final image. They don't have any idea what really went into how many experiments, how many trial and error, how many, in some cases, how many days it took just to get the right light, so forth and so on.
Oh yeah, exactly. Um, so I think I have one more of that. And so um, I just kept walking into the water. Oh, we didn't live here full time when I did this series. We're just here in the summer, and I'm out there at like it's summer, so quarter after 5, 5:30 in the morning, and like one day the neighbor asked me, "So what do you teach in New York?" I go, "You know that stuff I do in the lake in the morning?" And they were like, "Yes." I said, "I knew they were watching me." I go, "That's what I teach," and you
Busted.
can see them like take a step back, like, "That's what you teach?" Anyway, so I'm just having too much fun.
I like this one too.
Thank you. There's another one. See, that's the thing. I sort of started knowing what was going to happen.
So Carol Ann's asking, what was the app? Katrin used for multiple exposure shots?
The
Was
Average
there an
Cam
app?
Pro. Yeah, that
What?
with the phone, Average Cam Pro.
Average Cam Pro. I'll put that
Pro.
in the
Yeah.
chat. Okay.
Okay. Sometimes my husband would help me with the picture. He does not like getting up early. But if I made coffee, he would get
I
up.
can relate.
Yeah, I'm always up. So here's another quick time. Yep, nope, that's a time lapse. I'm sorry. You'd think I'd have everything ready. I had it ready. Okay, where you'll see how this is going to work. Where we're like trying everything. There's a mirror on the left. There's this chair here. Photograph over here. Try that. Oh, there the kayakers went by. The ducks went by. Photograph here. That's it. That's probably like a 40 minutes of photography. And now here's the question. Why does he get the towel around his shoulders?
He's
Like
holding
this.
it for you.
Yeah, right. Oh, uh-huh. Yeah. I got you. Anyway, but that's the thing. Like with every sunrise, I would do 2 to 3 to 4 different setups, and I'd be happy if I got one good shot.
And I gotta imagine, even in the summer, that water wasn't really warm,
No, and especially not.
especially at 5 in the morning. Yeah,
Yeah, and not in the beginning of the series.
right.
But it's just water. It can only go through. It only can only go through to your skin. It doesn't go further. So this is how I ended this series. A lot of cheap watches from the Salvation Army. So now, now in the time of COVID, many of us are at home. Well, of course, we're at home. We're supposed to be home. We're
Hmm.
supposed to be home, taking care of ourselves, taking care of our community, our families, and of course, life has changed. And so we have to, as artists, we're still going to want to work on projects and work at home, and that can be a challenge. And so I show. Wait. I don't. I'm not going to go that fast. I have this, and so something as simple as once again with the phone, just sort of finding the light. Just like there's a ray of light. Those glasses weren't there. I went and I got them and I put them into the picture. It's not the greatest photo, but for a few minutes, I really enjoyed it. Here, we showed this yesterday. Our house is a little older, so I have these crystal doorknobs, and I'm so glad the phone rang and I looked up and I just saw this flick of light. And that is one downfall if you're using an iPhone. If you're on the phone, and my husband's experience is like I gotta go. I see a picture. He's like, oh, whatever. Okay. So just up in the morning, just watching the light. And now, is this image going to change the world? Absolutely not. But you know what? That's not every photo doesn't have to do that.
It has to be, well, it doesn't have to be, but it's interesting and kind of just tell a story, just like makes you wonder.
Exactly. And so with the phone, these are just multiple layers because there's an outdoor porch and indoor area. So playing with that glass, which sort of
And someone
acts,
asked this all yesterday. This is
yeah,
all in camera one shot. This is not compositing.
exactly. All in camera. Oh, here, for the people that weren't here yesterday, here's the series. Like the woman mentioned the series she did at home. I had about 2.5 weeks of good light in the kitchen. And, I was making dinner. We were going to have carrots. And this light beam just came in. And I had this goofy carrot. And I was like, wait a minute. And just cut the base off, stuck it in, and took like 4 or 5 pictures. And it turned into like a Richard Serra sculpture. And this carrot was the beginning of an entire series that I could work on for about 2.5 weeks because this beam of light would just come in the kitchen and hit the surface perfectly. And so, you know, people talk about like photo gods or photo luck. No, you just have to sort of be ready to try things out and to see it. And as we talked about yesterday, there's no saying I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it later. It doesn't work because that light moved really quickly. I'd had a window of about 7 minutes that I could shoot. But I just think that it's good to show that, I mean, this is back to all iPhone, just what you can do really quickly while you're making dinner.
Definitely.
So here, you see that object, that shear? Well, that's obviously something I bought for the other series,
Mm-hmm.
but it never looked good in the lake because it was too small. But I still loved them, so I kept them. And I'm like,
Found
now
another
it,
use for it.
well, and I put it in its own little lake of water. I guess that was a stretch.
That's again creativity.
Yep. And here, just a little daffodil, but photographed through the bottom of a glass. Because for me, it was like, okay, I've done the objects, I've done the light, I've done the flowers. How can I change them? And once again, going back to those portraits, this is intervened just by me holding up a glass in front of the iPhone and shooting through that. And here's the thing, I suppose you could do this you could do it in Photoshop with filters and lens flare and all that. But in my opinion, nothing beats real light.
Agreed.
This is a little bit of my collection in the kitchen. Everybody needs old gauges, bird skulls, and cheese props. But but this
So,
is yes, it's
Alan's
just
asking an interesting question, and I guess I never thought
uh-huh.
of this, but it's a great
Uh-oh.
question. Do you think your iPhone photography improves your regular photography?
100% yes.
And why so?
Because well, first of all, it's so low tech that you really have to pay attention to like the composition. You can't use any photo tricks of like a long lens to bring the background up, or you don't have like shallow depth of field, so, etc. So you really have to pay attention to composition. Um, and the ability of you're always practicing framing does help your like regular photography. I don't really see a difference. And it's just so great to have that no pressure. You know, you're going to go food shopping. Wow, look at the light. Look at this. You saw something in the parking lot. You're not going to drive home, get your camera, but you're going to quickly practice or sketch. Some people sketch with their phone. I don't mean they turn into drawings. Or here's a very interesting, well, interesting for me, concept of it's as an artist, it's called proof of concept, where you have an idea and you have to try it out to see if it's going to work. That's what I did with the lemons in the lake. I was like, I don't know, let's try it. That was proof of concept. Oh, this has legs, let's keep going. So you could literally try out an idea with a phone, like, oh, this is going to work. And then, if needed, go get a higher resolution camera with interchangeable lenses. So back here in COVID land, we're very lucky. I mean, we moved away from New York, love New York, but of course it's a small apartment here. There's a house, there's a garden, there's a lake. And so I was like, well, I always wanted to photograph flowers with a flash, So, okay, try it. Um, I, if you're sometimes when you're in a rut, you can borrow a lens from a lens rentals or borrow lens. And this is the, oh, yeah, yeah. The, oh, I will get the name of it. Someone's going to yell at me for it. Um, this is a 24 millimeter macro lens. Do you see that big stick on it? That's the
Yeah.
lens. And it's the Venus something or other. It really lets you get these beautiful shots because at the end of the lens, there's little LED lights. And so this is almost straight out of camera. I mean, I just darken the background a little bit.
Really?
Yeah, it's really cool. And it comes for, I mean, obviously I'm using on a Sony, but they have it for other cameras too. It is just a weird lens. And there you can see the little ring light. That's at the end of the lens.
Yeah, I see that in the water drops.
Exactly. And so I am like practically inside that tulip. We all know how big a water drop is.
Yep.
Not very big. Okay. That's sort of what a bee would see,
That's
right?
a very interesting lens. I don't think I've ever seen
Yes.
that before.
Yes. I'll Google it. I was told myself I was going to remember. Then I'm lucky that we have an attic, which I can stand in about the center of. And so I set up a backdrop, very expensive backdrop, painting cloth from Lowe's. Okay. And just nailed it in and just lets me have a place to play with light and ideas and just try things out. And here's where did this inspiration come from? We were driving and like the store down the street hadn't mowed their lawn, so it was covered with these dandelions. I'm like, that's cool. So I got up the next morning with a big plastic container and I went down and I got the dandelions. And do you do this? Do you talk to yourself? I was like thinking, what if the police come? What are they going to do? Madam, or madam, right? They would call me madam. Ma'am, what are you doing at 6 o'clock in the morning picking dandelions? Well, I'm an artist and I'm going to take photos. Of course, nobody showed up, but I still have these conversations with myself.
Do
And
I talk to myself? Never.
no, never.
Straight
Exactly.
never.
Well, at least somebody's listening, right? Oh, the little parachute guys that are dropped in, those are
Mm-hmm.
dropped in. That's not Photoshop. I mean, I'm so stubborn. I kept taking the picture until I got them where I wanted them. As you could see at the bottom, I did it a lot. It ended up being covered with them. But I sort of like that idea of it being authentic. I know I could put it in Photoshop. It would be so easy to select it, put them in place, and just use the blend mode lighten because of that black background. But this is
So
more
for the
fun.
people that were wondering about that lens, I put a couple of links in the chat for
Thank you.
both borrow lenses and
Rental.
lensprotogo.com, which is the one I
Oh,
use.
oh yeah. And what's great about it is like that lens costs, I don't know, 15, 16, $1,700.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, I'm like, okay, that's four figures. You can rent it for, it was like 110 for a week. So I was like, that's win. I
Yeah,
mean,
absolutely. Like if I'm going out to a special shoot and it's going to be a lens I'm never ever going to really use on a regular basis,
yep,
that's what renting's for.
exactly. And sometimes as photographers, oh, here I am playing with the pedals. Just getting a new lens or borrowing lenses can inspire us. Like if you haven't ever played with a fisheye lens,
Right.
just get one. Be careful, you will end up bumping into things because you're looking
And
for
it
the viewfinder.
it also helps it from your photography not being stale because you're just using the same equipment you always use over and over again. You get to try
Exactly.
new things that you don't have to put a big investment in up front. Rent it for a week, try it out, do a lot with it, and then move on to the next one that you want to try.
Yeah, return it. I
Yep.
mean, don't put it in the lake, but yeah.
Yeah. No. Return it.
So, oh God, I can't believe I included this. So remember, I'm getting older, and there's a lot of getting older, identity, women, value, the whole thing. There's also the Anna Leibovitz portrait of Meryl Streep where she's pulling her skin. And so I literally just went out and made more ugly pictures because it's like, it's honest, right? I mean, I know I could Photoshop myself. I have the skills, but I'm like, no, I'm not interested in that. That was a little surprising. I oh, this is the original. I collaborate. I love collaboration. I collaborated with an artist, Seth Moses Miller, where he asks you to send him a portrait and then he creates the final image.
Okay.
And the idea of collab. Oh, back at the lake. Collaborating is really, really important for creativity. And at the end of our session, I'll make sure to show you my latest collaboration that I'm doing with Martine Severin. We're having COVID conversations, and I'll show that at the end. So I hope that was interesting.
It was for me, and based on the comments, it was for many of our viewers.
Oh, good. So now let's jump into Lightroom because that's why we're here. Okay. So I'm on Lightroom desktop. Most of what I'm going to show will also work on mobile. All right. And there's a few things that I think are really, really exciting. Some new features. And the first one that's getting a lot of attention is Local Hue. Now, we can, and it gives you the ability to shift color. Okay. Now you're thinking, well, I can do that with HSL. But with color mix, you can only go in 30-degree increments. You can only go so far if you shift the hue.
All right,
With
Katrin, I'm not sure what happened to your
uh-oh,
camera.
my camera.
Yeah, you're not moving. We still hear you,
I see
but
that.
your camera image is frozen.
I'm going to stop for a second.
Okay.
I was talking about getting old. I got
Oh,
old.
there you go.
I got
You were
old.
frozen in time. Now you're
I know.
back.
Uh-oh, she's back. Okay, Hugh. So, you know, a good link to put up would be Greg's article on Local Hue, his blog post. There. Isn't that helpful for me to throw this at you? Greg Sulke, he wrote,
Yes.
I know, it's like, hello. Maybe I could have told you that before. What I love about the Lightroom team is the people that actually like build these tools will write blog posts about them. And so Greg wrote this great blog post. There's his name, Culkie, blog post about Local Hue. Exactly like a year ago when texture came out, Max Went wrote a great blog post about texture. I mean, obviously, we love Julianne's posts and things, but I really love hearing from the engineers too. So that would be a good one to put in the podcast. Sorry, the thing. So here, Local Hue.
I'm looking for that link right now, but I'll
I'm
find it and put
sorry.
it in. No problem. I'll find it. That's what I'm
You
for.
you can't read my mind. Okay. Anyway, Local Hue. So what's really cool about it is you can shift colors subtly or less subtly. All right. I find it really great for skin tone. All right. Now let's take a look. I'm going to be using versions to show you. So this is the original. All right. Oh, that's the original. This is just processed. Let me quickly make sure I take out any.
Oh, Wade already found it. Go,
Oh,
Wade.
wait. Thank you so much. All right. Hang on. I'm having issues. Oh, yeah. Okay. Now, this is how Local Hue works. It's really classically, I'm going to get rid of this. And I know there's another one here. Okay. So, I really think it's great for skin tones. I feel that she's like a bit yellow in this picture. Let's look over here. I'll use the bigger one. Now, what you want to do with Local Hue is the following. Is you want to start with a selection. And when we talk about selections, we're talking about brushes, radial gradients, or linear gradients. All right. So if I get the brush, and I'm of course going to make a much larger, softer brush. Now, when you want to do this in the beginning, here's a little tip. When you first just get the brush tool, all you see here is the size of the brush. All right. To get more control, you want to twirl down the little triangle because to make a good selection for Local Hue, I would recommend to have auto mask turned on. And what that's going to do, where you click, it'll keep it within that range. Now, right now, it looks like I'm painting her with red, which is not what Local Hue does. I have tapped O for overlay so that you can see where I'm painting. Okay. Now, if I tap O again, the brush is still active, but that's how you can see it. So we see the pin is active. And now, if I come down to, I'm still in the brush, hue, you have this 360 slider. And what I recommend is at first, turn off fine adjustment. All right. And whoa, go really aggressive. Okay. And sort of see where you want to get the color. Like I want to take out some of the yellow and make her skin just a little more like as if she actually has some blood, a little warmer. Then lots of times I'll switch to fine adjustment because then the tool will barely move. Okay. And you can really fine tune colors that way. Now, when you use HSL in Classic or Color Mix in Lightroom, you have the hue, you have the saturation, and you have the luminance. Well, you actually also have that in Local Hue. You just have to be a little sneaky about it. That you have saturation. No, I would never do this. You can still adjust the saturation because it's working through the same mask. Okay. And if I wanted to adjust the luminance, I would work with exposure. So you can do really fine color correction and color interpretations by using a selection and then Local Hue. All right. And so I'm going to close that. And now I've warmed up her skin. I know that's subtle. You might not be able to see it, but its ability to shift colors 360 degrees is really, really great. Now, another way that I use Local Hue is the leaf red or are the shoes red? Um, my shoes are red. And no, I did not find a leaf that almost matches my shoes. I say almost because I know it's not perfect. And so let me show you what I did. If I get the brush, I actually painted, that's the mask. I painted with local adjustment. This is the original color of that leaf. Okay. And I used Local Hue to turn it magenta. Is that completely silly? Absolutely. Do I expect everyone out there in YouTube land to do better? Yes. So if you're going to use the brush, keep that tip in mind to twirl down the brush controls, and I would recommend having auto mask on. Okay. In Classic, you're lucky because in Classic, you can use range masking to make these masks and get really great effects. Have you done that, Terry?
I have. So Richard's asking, could you just not do this in levels?
Oh, I don't have levels in could I not do it? No, here's the thing. The way that Local Hue works and to be able to move those colors around that subtly. No, this is a new control.
Yeah,
And so,
go back to the interface, and I'll add on to that answer.
oh, I
Like
really
just
appreciate that.
go back to
Um,
local hue. All right, so there's two color bars at the
yep.
same time. There's the bigger one at the bottom and a really skinny one at the top. And wherever the dot is in the middle, that's where your color was when you started. When you're moving it left or right, the bar at the top is showing you what colors you're going to get.
Mhm.
So when people always ask, couldn't you do it blank way? Sure, but this is, in my opinion, this is way easier than trying to teach someone how to use levels. If you already know how to use levels, and if you had a program like Photoshop that had levels, by all means, knock yourself out, use levels. But for this being the visual indicator of not only where I am, but if I drag to the left, it's going to get more red. If I drag to the right, it's going to get more green. I'm seeing that before I do it. And that's kind of like the more modern interfaces that levels and curves and things like that don't always give you.
Yep. So I know people, I should probably use a portrait that is not quite so abstract. Um, I like using it really to refine color very subtly, which I think it's really good for. Okay, let's. Okay, so what else? Oh my goodness, should we talk about? Okay, now another thing, and I've sort of been using this and I haven't really talked about it, are versions. I love versions. And if you're from Classic and you're now here in Lightroom, you're like, where's my history? Versions they're like snapshots where you can really process an image. And let me show you the original. And to access the versions here, I'm going to open up my edit panel, and they're on the bottom right next to presets. So if I click on versions, you can see here's the original. Yeah, well, okay, I'm going to show you the original. It's not that great, but I sort of still like the mood and the feeling. And so classic thing to do is I'm going to turn it into black and white. And what's nice about this, I don't have to save out another file. I can actually see it. I can make another version. Lots of times I'll start with the original, make an interpretation, click on the version, and then I'll go and start using the selective tools. And it just really helps me organize my processing. And I think it's unlimited number of versions. And these sync across the entire Lightroom ecosystem. So they're going to be visible on the iPad, and I can see them everywhere. I think that's really great.
Right, with one caveat that they
Ah,
are not a direct translation to snapshots. So if you
okay.
create versions and you go back to Classic and your photo synced, you will not instantly have snapshots because they don't translate back and forth. Like keywords don't translate back and forth.
Boy, I'm so glad you're here to like translate what I actually mean to say. It's
No, yeah.
great.
So it's just across your phone and your iPad and your Lightroom on the desktop, great, but not to Classic. Just remember that.
Yes. Okay. And so here's another example of, there's the original. Here's like, oh, punchy color. And then how many times have you seen it on Instagram? Which one do you like? Color or black and white? Color, black and white. And I'm always like, please make up your own mind.
Right.
But, right, you're definitely desperate for interaction on Instagram. But sometimes I want to see what it's going to look like. So there. And now what I can do is I could export this. I could, print it. I could post it. I could print or post this one. And it's great. So you can actually have both versions. Okay. Um, here's a fun little thing that you might not know. So let's say you want to learn about versions. Oh, look, it's the same picture. It's my picture. I let the designers use my
How'd you
picture.
get that in there?
I know. I'm such a baby. It's such a kid. It's like, here, use this picture. And so they use that picture. So you can always go look at this picture. Really tiny. Okay, I got it. Anyway, so let's say you want to export this and you want to post it on Instagram, social media, etc. New feature that has gotten so many user requests. It's like, finally, watermarks. Okay, very simple. I'm going to come up to the export and I'm going to choose export, the top one, and small, etc. And here, if I click include watermark and you click on the settings, you can now say where you want it to be. I'm sort of a lower right person. I know it's very conservative to put it there. I'm going to say it out loud. Please don't put it over the middle of your images. But that's just me. Okay. Here, I'm going to say, please don't do that.
Don't do that.
Don't do
I
that.
agree.
Oh my
Let's
gosh.
ruin the experience for everyone.
Exactly. No. Okay. So you can set it here. You can change the typeface. Okay. Like to anything. All right. But I'm going to stick with what I had. And now when it exports, and you can be white or gray, when it exports, well, Katrin, why don't you just do that? Fine, I will do that. And I'm going to export it. And of course, as a good Mac user, just throw everything on the desktop. And boop. Okay, it's a little big, but it's interesting to me that has been a very high request. And so you don't need another app. You can do it. It syncs across the ecosystem. So you got that.
Yeah, I think it's a high request because people in some way think that protects their photo, which it really doesn't. So if that's the reason you want watermarks, you might want to think of other ways to protect your photos.
Yep.
Carol's asking, and Carol, I'll answer this for you. What's the difference between versions and virtual copies? Well, first of all, they're two different. They're not this. You don't have both of those in any one of the apps. So Lightroom, the one that Katrin's working with right now, the one that's on your phone, the one that's on your iPad, has versions, period. Lightroom Classic has virtual copies and snapshots. So technically, if you're talking virtual copies, your question would be, what's the difference between virtual copies and snapshots? Since Classic doesn't even have versions, and snapshots are kind of the same thing. The difference is a virtual copy gives you multiple thumbnails of the same photo. So I can make one virtual copy, two virtual copies, 10 virtual copies, whatever I want. And I'm actually in my grid going to have each one of those virtual copies. Then I can go into each copy and do whatever I want. Make one black and white, make one cropped, make one oversaturated, do a local adjustment on the other one. And it will treat them as 5 separate photos or 6 or whatever that I could export out separately. Whereas snapshots and versions are the same icon, the same photo where you're turning on or off specific edits. So and it can only be one at a time. So it's one version, whichever that version is, only displayed at once. So if I need to show a client 7 looks to a photo, I'd probably do that as virtual copies in Classic. If I'm in Lightroom, then I'm just going to do versions and export each version out as separate photos. So that's really the difference between the two.
Great. Okay, so one or two other small things, and then we're going to go into travel light. So I have this notifications, but there's no pictures in here. This is my prompt to talk about it. If you share a lot of albums with people, and I get a lot of albums shared to me, and I share albums, and people that do event photography do it, wedding photography, if you're collaborating on a project. Now in Lightroom, you can click the little bell and right in Lightroom, see exactly which picture a person liked and what they commented on. So she commented on this photo. Let's see. It will open it, and there's the comment. Wait, this one's better. Oh, well, I'm glad she likes that. So that's really cool. I can do that now in Lightroom. I used to have to go to the web to see all that, but it's like I'm right here. I could like take this file, process it out, and I'd be way ahead. And the sharing of the albums is really, really great because I can also comment. I asked Jamie to send me an album. I sent her an album. And so she's in New York. I can quickly look. Oh, that's me. She sneak a picture of me into there. Okay. Now, if I'm in this album, and here, I'm going to open up the comment area. I can heart, and I can comment, love the light. Okay. And then you have to click post comment. She's now going to get, if she was in Lightroom, she could click on that bell. Oh, that's so cool. Love this one. Okay. And then directly in Lightroom, she could actually, oh, I like this one better. Here's the tip. Look through the whole album before you comment. Right? Anyway, really nice photos. I love all of this. So it's really cool that you're in Lightroom anyway, and then you have this activity monitor, and then you can actually just exactly see what photos someone liked or didn't like. Okay, so I think that's really neat. Now, let me get out of that. Oh, right. So we did that. We did that. Oh, so speaking of learning, how was that for a segue? Because we weren't really speaking of learning. Um, there's two features. One brand new for all of our Lightroom aficionados. Okay, that if we did an edit here, or if you do an edit that you're really proud of, like let's say I'm really proud of this edit. So if I come over here and I hit the slash key, that's the before. I'm really proud of it. Let me choose one where I haven't. So here's another. Oh, there we are back. There's your lighthouse. Okay, well, oh, here. Oh, geez. Here's the confession. I turned on the lights. Okay, so I'm really proud of this edit. Well, I can now share this edit with the world. And we would love for all of you Lightroom people to share your edits. And I'll show you why. First, I'm going to show you, I'll show you why and what I'm talking about. If you click on home on your tablet, on your phone, we have learning content, tutorials I'll talk about, and discover content. And the discover content here is these are edits that the Lightroom community has shared. And look, you can see how someone processed their image. And now, not just by rolling over the image. Ooh, I like that. Black and white, moody. So I can roll over it, but check this out. If I click on it, it will actually play. And I can see, ooh, they use profile, black and white 12, increased it, did this highlights, shadows, dehaze, definite dehaze, up gradient. Look at that. And I can actually drag up and down and figure out what that person did. So you can learn by snooping, right? And what's even better, I really like this black and white. I can save that person's edit as a preset. Oh, it's definitely a German. Architekturfotografie. I got to work my German into this presentation. Schwarz-Weiß, that's what SW stands for. Did you know that I speak German? I'm gonna.
And what's nice about that, and I guess I never really noticed this dialogue, maybe it's new. Saving a preset has always been a thing since these edits came out, but I like
Yeah.
now that, again, I don't know if this is new, but you have the ability to turn off specific things in
Yes.
the edit that you don't need.
Yes. For example, geometry. Your picture might not be crooked that you're
Right.
going to apply this preset to. So, I mean, that's like one of the things I check for. Linear gradient. There's going to be lots of skies in my picture. I can take that. So I'm going to take Christopher's preset and go save it. And now it's in my presets, which is cool. Then what else can we learn? Well, we can see which camera was used. Ba, 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 ba. So you see the exposure and everything. I think that's really cool. So I'm going to go back, and you too can save your edits and be visible in this Lightroom community where everybody's sharing their work. And I have already learned so much by looking through these. Like this, look at this edit. I mean, it's
Yeah.
intense. And the thing is like, this is sort of like, photo, right? I mean, that side's all overexposed. The sleeve is distracting. I hope I'm not insulting the person that took this picture. But then I'm like, whoa, those are some seriously aggressive linear gradients. And when I think about it, I'm going, I'm going to try that. I'm going to try that. And you just get ideas from it. I think it's great. So let
Now,
me,
Katrin, I know earlier on the tool that we used to make these didn't allow for things like adjustment brush. Has that been updated?
it's yes, yes, yes.
Okay,
Everything, brushes, spotting, retouching,
it's time for me
all
to do new
supported.
ones.
Yes, for discovery files, not for tutorials
Oh,
yet.
not for tutorials yet. Okay, got
Yes,
it.
yes, but it is still time for you to do ones. So how do you do this? Okay, I'm going to come back to my edit, my lighthouse, And if you click on the up arrow where you would share, click up arrow, drag down to share edit. See, it says submit to discover. It says beta. This is a brand new feature. In a way, we're trying to see, like, do people like it? Do people want to share? Let me just say definitively, oh yeah, people are loving this and sharing. It's really cool. So I'm going to share it. I'm going to name it. I cannot type the way I'm sitting. Okay, I would give a little description. From dull and dark to light and bright. Okay, enable save preset. You know, if you like this preset, knock yourself out. Include location information is turned off by default. I think that's a good idea. Okay, I mean, I would keep that information to myself. Category, well, you would just choose, you know, it's a landscape and it's architecture, and you don't have to choose all three. Travel, sure. My copyright's going to be embedded in the file. All right. And now I'm going to share it. And what it's doing now is it's looking at the file and the metadata and literally building that package. Boom, it's alive, ready to go. That's how fast it goes. That was like 10 seconds. And look what you can do. You can copy the link and post it on your Instagram story, post it on Twitter, Facebook, whatever you want, and then, share it with people, and people can come look at it.
Question: if they click the link and they don't have Lightroom, does it open up in a browser or does it prompt them to download Lightroom?
It goes to Lightroom. I think it goes to Lightroom Web.
I will check it right now.
I'm sorry.
I just thought of that. Like, I don't know what
Yes.
happens when you click
I think
that
it
link
goes
if you don't have.
I think it goes to Lightroom Web.
All right, let me try it.
Okay. It's pretty cool, right? And now you can go back, and here I have a number of, because I've been doing this, a number of edits. These are all the discovery files I've built, where you can see how I've processed pictures. All right. And also, both Terry and I also have tutorials. So remember that boxing picture? The tutorials are interactive learning. All right. And there's hundreds of them. And let me show you how that works. That every tutorial starts like this, that you have the before on the left and the after on the right. And there's always a little text that the author writes. Okay. And I'm going to click start tutorial. And here's the thing. That's the original shot. I'm telling you why I want to crop it. We're not just telling you what to do, we're telling you why to do it. So it's like, okay, and you know what? You actually have to do it. It's actually guiding you through the cropping to actually get the picture the way I had it, which I think is really, really cool. And so it'll step you through, and then I'm going to teach you about using a profile, and you're actually doing it. It's not like watching a YouTube video where a couple minutes later you end up watching pictures of like kittens wrestling, which is great, but it's not going to help you learn about cropping. I knew that was you watching those kitten wressling videos,
Yeah,
Terry.
because there's not enough of those on the internet.
Yeah. Okay, hang on. Now, I'm going to go back, and I don't know why that was. So, if you're interested in learning, you click on Learn. You can browse by a topic. Let's say you're really, you're into black and white. You click on black and white, and all the black and white tutorials show up. Okay. You can also browse by tool. So, if you really want to learn about geometry, all of those tutorials feature geometry. Here, if you want to learn about just one tool, we have these very, very, very short tutorials that literally talk about one thing. So you're like, oh yeah, I always want to know what texture did. I mean, it's literally 4 screens. It's not even going to look, they take like a minute to do, 1 or 2 minutes. So you can do that. Or you could go by subject matter. Let's say you're a food photographer. Well, I'm going to click on food and then go, wow, there's some really good food photographers here. Okay. And then you can do their tutorials and actually learn from top photographers how they process their images. So I went from discovery to tutorials. Okay. So, and I hope that you will also consider sharing your edits. Of course, the copyright stays with you. The high resolution file is not uploaded, and it's just a really great way to share. Oh, wait. One more thing. Um, when I go to home and I go to, let's say, Discover, hang on.
I'm
I
doing
want,
one right now.
are you? All
I am
right.
doing a new
I
one.
know. Okay.
It's
So,
submitting. I'm excited.
oh, good. If you hit submit, I'm going to click on your page.
I just submitted it. And it's ready to share.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to click on, let me see. Come on. Well, anyway, I'll click on mine real quickly. If you can also, you will also get an artist page. All right, that's mine. Obviously, I have a lot of stuff here, but let's just look at, oh my goodness, a random person. Ah, so I click on this and I go to their artist page. Look, you get your own artist page that you can then edit. So you could literally have your own page, your own followers, and have a whole gallery here. And let's say, let me go back to mine because I don't want to.
All right.
I come over here.
I posted one in the chat, and when I just did,
Uh-huh.
and I went and clicked the link, and it did actually prompt me to launch Lightroom.
Oh, good.
So I don't know what happens for those that don't have it. Maybe someone in the chat can tell me if you don't have Lightroom, what does it do?
I did know that, but I don't want to say anything wrong.
All
It
right, all
does.
right.
They do have deep links. Anyway, um, what was I saying? Something about the page. Oh yeah. So if you have an artist page, and you're going to have one as soon as you make a discovery file, notice there's a little up arrow here on your artist page in the upper right. You can click it, and you can share your author page and post it on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc.
Just social media.
Yeah, just social media, and let people know. And any teachers out there should be thinking, oh, I could have my students do this and I can check their
All right.
image
So
processing.
Barry and Krishana confirmed that it does go to Lightroom Web.
Oh, thank you. And I,
So if you have the Lightroom client, it opens up in that. But if you don't, it goes to Lightroom Web, which is exactly what you said. You were right.
phew, good. Because I mean, I have Lightroom installed on every device in my home, including my toaster. So I cannot test that. Right?
Right.
Every version flavor.
Yeah,
Anyway,
and that was the problem I ran into. I even tried to do it in an incognito browser, and it still went to, um, still wanted to ask for the app.
yes. So that's in and you can create discovers in other, not in classic but in mobile, desktop, etc. It's fun. It's actually fun. It's actually fun. I mean, you do
It
an
is fun.
edit, and let people it's not like, oh, let's invent Instagram again. No, this is for the Lightroom community. So we really want to see your processing that shows Lightroom magic. You're
Right.
not putting up final images. You're putting up images that you put some care into, and that like really want to sort of show, look what I did. So let's see some magic.
All right. I'm going to find your profile and share it as well.
Okay, thank you.
I think I'm following you. Let me see if I can find you. There's no
It's
search, right? There's no search for authors?
No, that's a big feature request.
That would be
Believe me.
nice.
I think I copied my own page.
Let's see. Featured. Or what did you just post that one under you just did?
Uh, oh God,
Category.
architecture.
Architecture. Okay. And I think this, nope, that's the one you were playing with. You can keep going. We have
Yep.
like
Can,
about 18
can
minutes left.
I know? Can you see that? I mean, it's not like Terry and I had a script. We're like, this is live.
Sometimes we definitely play this by ear.
That's right.
This is one
Like
of those times.
with 4 ears between us. Okay, really quickly, I need to go into Lightroom traveling light. I really wanted to talk about traveling light, and I hope you guys are still interested in that. And I want to show you how I do travel. All right, and how I have traveled. I'm going to show some slides. I'm going to talk about it and why I travel like this now. Now, of course, with COVID, we're not traveling. I mean, we're not. And it is something that I'm sure many of us miss, but it's still applicable to the idea of many times the less technology, the simpler the technology, the better the pictures. So, this is me, I would say 10, 12 years ago with Lightroom 2. I was lucky to be invited to go to Tasmania with the Lightroom team. And you see me here with a medium format camera photographing these dead bones. I just love photographing dead things. So, medium format camera, laptop, tripod. It was so heavy. I'm going to go pretty quickly. So, I found these whale bones and I set up this little studio in this museum area and photographed these bones. Then, if you're in Australia and Tasmania, they're incredibly proud of their nature. And there's always, whenever you go on a ride, they're saying, be careful of the wildlife. And so I'd be like, what do you guys do with all your garbage? I mean, this place is so clean. Where's the garbage? And they were like, we take it to the dump and we sort it, and people can pick up what they need. And I'm like, really? Can I go to the dump? So here I am in this beautiful environment asking to go to the dump. So I set up a studio in the dump and I found objects that I thought told a story. And so I found these like objects. So I found all these scales and I'm there with strobe and a medium format camera photographing old bathroom scales. And I'm about as excited as a person can get because I'm thinking, this is cool. Because I'm thinking of all the stories, right? You stand the scale, the number, what does it mean for your identity and your self worth and all this stuff. And so I did these series and then I put them together as a grid for these scales. And I kept finding things. I found all these old tools. And we did have an exhibit at the end of this tour. And the Minister of Tourism came and he bought some of these prints for his office. And I was like, okay, well, I guess they're just different than what most people would do. um, it's like, I don't think anybody really wants to use these masks anymore, but I thought they were cool. So um, I was teamed up with another woman, and what she did is she drove around with stuffed animals from Tasmania. She'd contacted the museum, and they lent out these animals, and we would set up these tableaux. So you had two 6 foot tall women that could speak German driving around a car, as we would say, on the wrong side of the road with stuffed animals. It was always a conversation starter. Now, this is how I travel now. Much smaller cameras, and just an iPad. I do not take my laptop with me anymore. I've been traveling like this now for over 2 years. Okay. And God, do I sound spoiled? A laptop weighs 6 pounds.
I
Six
know.
pounds. You know,
6 pounds
I,
is nothing unless you have to carry it.
exactly all day for
Right.
up and down and waiting for planes. It really adds up. So now how I travel, I did this experiment the first time I went to China. I'm only going to take an iPad. I'm only going to take a camera and a card reader, and of course, batteries. And the challenge of coming to these countries, of course, I wanted to visit these soldiers. Like, how can I photograph them? I would hope in a unique way. And boy, did I luck out that the light was pouring in that day. because that is definitely not always the case. That I was just like super lucky. And this is a museum, and there's a lot of restoration work being done. So of course, I had to find the people in the Saran wrap. See, wrapping my portraits. See, it all comes back.
It all comes back.
It all comes back. Um, how can I show China? So you've got the classic, and then the Tai Chi, but the cranes in the background. And I'm like, don't even just take the picture. Like I don't even know what I'm photographing here. The clothing on the coat rack, I don't know, but I'm trying to show parts of where I go, not just the classic subjects, not just the ceramic sculptures, sort of show different points of view of China. I'm sure people are wondering what the heck is she taking a picture of. I was like so excited by this, you know. Once again playing with time. And here's the thing, it's the oldest National Geographic photographer trick in the book. Find an interesting background and wait, and I right?
Yeah,
You just wait for something to
that's
walk
right.
or drive into the frame. And so I do that a lot. I like this composition of the corner and her with that beautiful dress on. And this is further out in the country. These are kids after school getting a snack. I like kid in the middle. Look at him. It tastes good. I love it. And so this is a snack that you'd have after school. And I'm just standing there, just taking pictures. And so we found a rickshaw dump, right? And so here's these pictures aren't even that good, but come on, if you're going to find abandoned rickshaws, you're going to take the pictures, right?
Definitely.
Absolutely. So I was take a selfie, and how could you get a picture of yourself taking a selfie? I was lucky 2 years ago to be traveling with Sean Duggan, who we know does a lot of Adobe tutorials and works with lynda.com. We would travel together and did some workshops, and of course we were always taking pictures. So there's the picture. Wasn't that sort of weird to find Holland in the Chinese landscape? There's Sean. And we were sort of like, what is this doing here? Because it was like in the middle of nowhere. Like, I don't know. Take the picture.
It's a prop.
Yeah, definitely.
Somebody left it behind on some photo shoot or movie set.
Yeah. So I just always there's a puddle photographing. Um, I love photographing in the rain. It's best. Here, the classic landscape that inspired Avatar. If you quit out of Lightroom on your phone and are asked to log in, one of these pictures will pop up. So
Hmm,
I know it's
didn't know
exciting.
that.
Yep. Well, that's because we don't really quit out of it. So I saw this kid watching a movie on the iPad or something. I was like, oh, cute factors going up. But
Mm-hmm.
here's the thing with the photography. This picture's like way too busy, right? So Sean took me. Now you see where I'm actually shooting, and there's the shot.
There's the shot.
And
Definitely.
that I know it's so cute. And the women in the background, they were laughing. They thought this is the funniest thing they saw. Of course, I had no idea what anybody was saying, but everybody had smiles on their face.
Mm-hmm.
And then I processed the picture in the plane because I was so excited about it on my iPad. Beats watching the movie. And this is how everybody looks when they get off a 14-hour flight. Now, recently in November, I went to Cuba. I've been to Cuba 4 times, maybe 5 times.
That's on
And
my
it's
bucket list.
Oh yeah. It's good to go back because the first time you take pictures of the cars and all that stuff, you sort of but then when you go back again and again, you feel more comfortable and um I just love how this man is standing there watching the other people do the work. Do have to get a car in, but this feels more like a church altar to me. We did work with some dancers from the National Ballet, and we set her up. And then the guy with the garbage cans walked in the scene, and I'm like, this is perfect. And everybody else is upset. And I'm like, no, take the picture. So I loved it. All natural light. Also, some skateboarders, worked with some skateboarder people.
Yep. So Richard's asking a question you and I talked about before we went live, and that is, how do you get the photos onto your iPad Pro?
I know, I'm going to show that. Well, Richard, I have a card reader, a USB-C card reader, and I'm shooting Sony. So I'm shooting with the A7R4 62 megapixel files. And I launch Lightroom, put the card reader in, and I click on import, and they all go into Lightroom.
Yeah,
And then,
and that's a fairly new facet that you just mentioned. Before
yes, you're
you
right.
used to have to bring them into your camera roll first and then import them into Lightroom. And within the last year, now you can bring them directly into Lightroom from a card reader or plug in your camera in directly to your iPad.
Yes, and that is such a big difference because when you had to go to the camera roll, then you imported a Lightroom, then you had to remember to go back to the camera roll and
Delete
delete the
them. Right.
files.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ah,
Three times the steps back then.
yes. So still Cuba. Here is my kit that I traveled with to India for 16 days. All carry on. I mean, I refused to check luggage. So the roller on the left was for me, and there's the camera backpack in the middle that came in at 14 pounds, and then just a little shoulder bag. You're walking around with the water and the wallet, the passport, and an extra battery.
All
And
right.
so all carry on. And there's the kit. This is what I traveled with to India for 16 days. One
Yep.
backpack. I used the Sony's on the left. And I'm not saying you have to use Sony. I'm not saying that. I'm just
All
saying
right.
that's what
We
I use.
know whatever brand you prefer.
Exactly. Preference of choice. I only took one lens. How nervous do you think I was with that decision? I knew I was going to be doing a lot of street photography. So I took the 2470. One lens, it never came off, which helped avoid dust.
Yep.
Because does anybody like changing lenses? No. Um, and then that little camera in the middle is the RX1 R2, which is a fixed 35 millimeter camera, 35 millimeter lens and frame, really good for street shooting. And the iPad and a little Godax flash, and that's it. A bunch of batteries.
Yep.
That's
So
the whole kit.
I see, is it Magda or Majda? Hopefully I'm saying that correctly, is asking more about getting the images in. So on the iPad Pro, the newer ones that have USB-C, you can do it with either iPad, but the newer ones that have USB-C, this is a USB-C dock. So, and she's got one too. So the dock itself has a card reader built in. It's got standard USB ports built in. Yep. And so you can just plug this end into your iPad, put your cards in here, and import them directly into Lightroom. So you don't need a computer. The other question you're asking is, all images are stored in the cloud. I probably would not want to store everything in the cloud. Is there a way to get an external hard drive to work with the iPad? And the answer is, for Lightroom, yes, they are all synced to the cloud once you have an internet connection. Until then, let's say you're shooting in the middle of nowhere with no Wi-Fi, no 4G. You could import them in, work on them, do everything you want to do, and then the next time you connect to the internet, they would upload or sync.
Yes.
So from a Lightroom standpoint, no, you don't work. There's no work with an external drive just to have them always be local.
Wait,
Now
wait,
the
wait,
other
wait,
option,
wait, wait, wait,
the
wait,
other
wait,
option,
wait.
you could
Okay.
you could tell a particular album to stay local. So that way it is always on your local device, so that you don't have to be on an internet connection for things you hadn't worked on in a while. Is that what you're going to say, or more?
No.
Oh, go
So I'm sorry to get all excited. There is one external hard drive that will work with your iPad. It's called the NAR box, spelled GNAR
ahead.
box, and it has card readers. And I use that as my backup, where you can back up all the files. And it does work with Lightroom, that you can make your selects and import just those. So, but back to that question about where are these files? Like when I was traveling in India, I mean, we were staying in some very, let's say, simple lodgings, right? That it wasn't, we were not at the Hilton and the Hyatt. And so I couldn't rely on the Wi-Fi. So everything, all of my files were on the iPad, the actual files, and on my camera cards because I'd never reformat till I get home. And then when I got home, kicked up the good wireless here, and they all went up to the cloud. And so it's I like that about Lightroom that I know where all my raw files are.
Right. So here's another hard drive. This is by Western Digital. This is their My Passport
Mm-hmm.
um, SSD. This will work with your iPad. LaCie makes one called the Copilot Boss. That
Oh
will
yeah.
work with your iPad. The question that I'm seeing Harvey ask now, which is a common question, what did you do with all your images that were in Lightroom Classic from years past? Did you leave them in Classic or move them over to Lightroom Cloud? Everyone has a different answer, so Katrin, I'll let you have your answer for that one.
No, I have 350,000 pictures in Classic. They are staying there. I'm sorry. Did I sound bitter? I'm like, no, 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 no. And you can import from Classic, etc. But in all honesty, that's sort of like the archives. Personally, they're still in Classic. That's my personal. I don't want them there.
Yeah.
Isn't
Now,
that
keep in
terrible?
mind, if you are a Classic user and you do want to switch to the Lightroom Cloud version, you can import
Yep.
your catalog. You can import them all in.
Yes.
But you then are asking yourself, do you really need all 350,000 in your new workflow? And if the answer is yes, import them. The answer is good for Katrin, it's no, leave them where they are. So it's totally up to you.
Yep. Okay, I'm going to go real quick because I definitely want to. So this is sort of still India. Here, this is sort of people. This is how the laundry's done by hand, and that's the iron. I will never complain about doing laundry again. Seriously. I mean, I could not pick that thing up. It was so heavy. I mean, I could, but
It looks pretty hot too.
it's amazing. And so, of course, you're going to go to the Taj Mahal. And I lost sleep of like, how am I going to photograph it like it hasn't been photographed 10 million times before? And that crow is actually there. I did not Photoshop that crow in. And thank the Lord it's there because I got one picture with it. So you just try. I crawled around on the floor a lot. See, notice what I did? I got really low because that
Yep.
cut out a lot of the people. There were a lot more people there. It's like something like 25,000 people a day visit the Taj Mahal.
Right.
So it's
And
like,
yeah, I've not been there, but from everyone that I've talked to that's gone, if you want to get there and there's no people, you got to go early in the morning.
yeah, really early.
Really early, super early before any tourists go there.
Exactly. And so here's another example. I waited like 10 minutes for somebody that wasn't wearing blue jeans to walk into the picture, you know. Now this is what India is about for me. It's about the people. I mean, this is pre-COVID. Obviously, there's no social distancing. I mean, it's just intense. There's life everywhere. And I admit I felt a little overwhelmed and I wanted to say, well, how can I express that with photography? And that's when I did this in the Sony using a slower shutter speed. We were in traffic jam in a bus, and this is the bus next to us. Look at this guy down here. I mean, it's
Wow.
amazing. I mean, that such a handsome face. Amazing. I mean, if I'm a traffic jam, I'm going to entertain myself with a camera. Here, it's like this little village, and I walk in, I'm like, oh, I don't have my flash. This is like 12,000 ISO. These cameras are ridiculously amazing. And not just Sony, all these modern cameras.
Yes.
I mean, it's just like, what? I mean, things that we would never do with film. In the old days, it'd be like, oh, I have 200 and I'll push it to 400. Woohoo!
Well, and with that said, Katrin, we are officially out of time.
Oh my gosh.
I know,
I'm sorry.
I know. It
I,
flies when
I,
you're having fun.
I'm sorry. I talked too much.
You didn't.
Didn't
It was
get to
perfect.
everything.
So,
Yeah.
again, for people that didn't see us yesterday, where can they follow up with you? Where can they find you online?
I am ready for this question this time. So there's my Instagram. It's my name, Katrin underscore Eismann.
Let me get out of the way. There we
Oh,
go.
sorry. There's my website. It's Katrin hyphen Eismann. I couldn't get the other one. Sorry, I made a mistake. And there I am. As Terry knows, yesterday I celebrated my 1 year anniversary at Adobe. I am the oldest newbie.
Perfect. All right. Cheers, everybody. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next one. If you're interested in photography, my master class is tomorrow, every Friday, except for next Friday, but tomorrow at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern, same channel. Just tune back in, and I'll be doing covering the updates in more detail for the June release for Photoshop and Lightroom across the board. All right, thanks, everybody. We had a great time. Katrin, thanks for coming. We'll definitely have you back. And
Aha.
I'm going to head out before they cut us out. Thanks,
Okay.
everybody.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody. Have a good weekend, everybody. Bye.